Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
You're watching
Fanboy.
Fanboy,
etc. Fanboy Nation.
I assume Tom.
This afternoon, we're going to be clowning around talking comics and all sorts of virtual fun stuff that's coming our way. David Lucatch and Gary Schaeffer, how are you guys today?
We're
it's
great.
David Lucatch.
I thought I said, yeah, I have these Invisalign here. Look, these things right here make me sound like a horrible human being, and I can't pronounce anybody's name right.
Yeah, well, because you said Lucatch, and I'm going, no, it's Lucatch.
Lucatch, see? But it doesn't matter. Like, I kept calling a guy named Yuri Yuji the whole time when I first got him in. Like, nothing would come out right. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to butcher everybody's name till my teeth are straight again.
There you go.
So, gentlemen, fill me in on what's going on. You guys got this new project here. I mean, it sounds like we're going to have a lot of fun talking about all this stuff that's coming out from, excuse me, you know, with the Outer Spaceman collection from Oasis Digital Studios.
Wow, well, that's a big part to start with. So, Gary, why don't you start with what the Outer Spaceman is, and then I'll add to that.
So the Outer Spaceman is basically a line of toys which is well over 50 years old at this point. Originally, back during the 1960s and the space race, it was the absolute must to beat the Russians to the moon, no less just orbit in space. And the whole country was just space crazy. And along comes Mel Birnkrant, the creator of the Outer Spaceman, who had seen Major Matt Mason, which was at that time the gold standard of space toys, created by Mattel, lasted from 1966 to 1970, came along and he saw Matt Mason and said, you know what, I think what's missing here are a bunch of bad guys or a bunch of aliens. So he went home and secretly created the Outer Spaceman. The first 7, called Series 1, represented unique and individual planets in our current solar system. Earth was not represented, nor was Mercury. And what happened was the child playing with the toy got to choose whether or not it was going to be a good guy or a bad guy. And in essence, it was the very first bad guy toy. Because in World War II, you didn't go out and buy the latest Hitler action figure in his newest field outfit. There was no such thing as a bad guy toy. Back then, you had to play with the Leadworks and the Cowboys and the Indians, and you still had to make up bad guys. Now, for the first time, you had different aliens from different planets in our solar system that could really battle against Major Matt Mason. Our spacemen were actually created to scale, to mirror Matt Mason as well, so that there were 6 inch, 6.5, 7.5 inch toys. And so Colossus Rex, for example, one that was 7 inches tall, towered above Matt Mason from Jupiter, but he was the most successful. Today, we're manufacturing Outer Spacemen to a whole different kind of generation. We have picked up not only the original baby boomers, who when I first started this, basically there was about 200, I would say, nationally, living in mommy's basement, eating the neighborhood children. They were clamoring for the return of the Outer Spacemen. Well, I brought them back. And now everybody is thrilled. Everybody's playing with them. And I could guarantee you that I have Outer Spaceman toys on 6 of the 7 continents on Earth. And I'm working on collectors in Antarctica as we speak.
Just all the scientists there. And then the USOs, the unidentified submerged objects.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, because they need their day in the sun too. You know, no pun intended, because
you know what?
Everyone always worries about the UFOs, but they always forget about the USOs.
That's true. But I'll tell you what, the Outer Spacemen are such archetypical imagery. They're such romantics from the 1960s. You know, today we have no heroes, and the Outer Spacemen today represent heroic people or heroic beings. And you know what? That's half the reason that they're being picked up by not only 18-year-olds, but like 45 and 50-year-olds as well, still.
And Gary, I do have to mention this before, you know, David lynches me for mispronouncing his name because of my Invisaligns. What about kids and toys? Because a lot of kids are outpriced when it comes to toys. You know, like parents aren't going to sit there and buy their kid a $40 toy, even though they'll buy them a $40 video game and then all the expansion packs that come with it.
So the bottom line is I range in price from $20 to $500 for some of the really high-end one-off custom painted Outer Spaceman toys. The beauty of the current Outer Spaceman is that it's based on a system, a toy system called Glyos. And there are hundreds of Glyos toys in the world. What it does is it enables you to tear apart the ball and socket joints on all the separate points of articulation on the toy and reconfigure it in any pattern that you want. Certain aliens, like Astronautilus, who is the body of a Chamber of Nautilus squid, certain outer spacemen have many more than just the standard 4 or 6 points of articulation. Astronautilus has 14 points. But the beauty is that you could take any Glyos figure, whether science related, whether alien related, or whether humanoid related, and you can combine any sorts of other Glyos-related tentacles and arms and legs together to form your own aliens. If you were to do a Google search on Glyos custom, you would see tens of thousands of different examples of Glyos custom toys. But the young kids can play with these toys because they are priced, but some of them are 20, some of them are 25. You can get them for cheap.
And David, I'm going to over-enunciate your last name, Lucatch. So it comes out this time. Well, I want it to come out right for once. You know, I sound like a moron with these things in it. Like, you can't say anybody's name right. How is this guy a professional? So, David, how did you become involved with all of this?
Well, you know, I've been a comic book collector since I'm about 5 years old. So I'm very fortunate. My father got me involved when I was little. My parents started by giving me a quarter a week and I could buy 2 comic books. So I remember the 1960s, not that well, but I remember the 1960s. And then, you know, I found collecting, and my first business was buying and selling collector comic books. You know, I moved on and started running my own businesses, and got involved again back in the industry in my 30s. And you know, over the years, I've done some amazing projects in the comic book industry, or in the sort of the MCU and other universes. You know, we were involved with the Avengers when it started with Marvel, and Star Wars and all types of stuff. And by virtue of that, I became friends with Stan Lee. So it was a very interesting situation. Liquid Avatar, which is our current company that focuses on digital identity, allows people to represent your digital identity using an avatar. And as part of that, we formed an NFT division called Oasis Digital Studios to support organizations and creators in their pursuit of bringing to market NFTs. And through a mutual contact of ours, Mariano Nicieza, I was introduced to Gary, and, you know, I remember the toy. Again, I can't remember everything about it, but I remember the toy, you know, and I went, wow, this would be amazing to create some really cool NFTs in conjunction with the physical product. So we, you know, we took all the products and we did hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs professionally of the products. And we then went to CGI, and we went and we created 3D animations and 3D renderings of all the products. And now we've created a very custom line of NFTs that include really amazing videos and images, 3D images, along with the physical product, which is coming out in the next week or so.
You know, that is a very long answer to call Gary old with, in the fact that you said first you didn't remember the 60s and then you revamped this. But no,
I'm a child of the 60s, so I'm old too, so I'm okay with that.
I'm totally teasing.
I'm as old as Spider-Man, so I'm good with that.
There you go. No, but these NFTs are a big thing right now. I mean, there was a replica of the LA Dodgers World Series ring that sold for like $250,000 or $500,000 or something like that. And I know with NFTs, they're specifically watermarked for the artist and for the person that purchased them. How is there still a way to avoid having them copied illegally, and people sitting there and go, well, I have a different copy that I didn't have to pay X amount of dollars for?
Well, they didn't pay X amount of dollars for. It's not blockchain verified. Today, we have a system of not only watermarking, but building a pedigree on an NFT. So once the item is blockchain verified, you're actually watching through blockchain, you're watching the ownership take place, whether it sells once, twice, 3 times, doesn't matter. It will always be verified through the blockchain, and the person who is buying it for his screensaver or for whatever use that he's going to choose, he is guaranteed that he's got the original validated piece.
I was going to, and Gary's 100% correct. I'm going to make it a bit simpler. When you buy, I'm going to use sports memorabilia because it's probably easier to talk about that. When you buy an autographed football, you really don't know the chain of custody. So the challenge is there's been many sports memorabilia products, and I'm sure there if it's not CGC'd, there's probably a lot of comic books that are not authentically signed, right? Or you know, there is no verification. So chain of custody or chain or source of truth is a very important situation in collecting that has not been available. Really hasn't been, as Gary calls it, the pedigree. It's not been available. And what using technologies to create NFTs and support NFTs allows that chain of custody to exist. And Gary said a little more technically, and certainly I would have said the same thing. But so what makes this uniquely different is that the owner retains ownership. Sure, someone could try and make a copy, but they're not going to be able to sell it as an authentic item because it doesn't have that chain of custody.
And it could also, what's it called? Eliminate the black market aspect of it. You know, people that have stolen art throughout history and then sell these pieces on the black market and get top dollar for something that was never theirs to begin with.
That's hard to you know, say whether that will happen or not. And we don't look at NFTs as investments. You know, which a lot of art is. We look at them as collectibles. We look at them as ability to have an experience and be able to tell a story. With all of us, we're very passionate about our collections and what we do. And outer spacemen collectors are exactly the same. They're very, very passionate about the product. And this is the first opportunity they get to not only have a physical representation of the product, but also a digital product that they can carry on a mobile device and carry 10 of them on, or 20 of them or 30 of them on a mobile device, much easier than carrying them in a backpack.
You know, something that I didn't tell you was that the first series of 7 were so wildly successful that Mel Burnkrant and the Colorforms Corporation was actually bringing out a second series of 6. Mercury was finally recognized, and then 5 others from different locations in and out of our galaxy. But beyond that, those 6 never made it to actual store shelves. When man stepped on the moon in July of '69, nothing was there. We had essentially conquered space. Nobody's imagination wandered beyond the moon. During Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers, Ming the Merciless left his planet Mongo, but put up his station on the moon from whence to attack Earth, from where to attack Earth. And so we never even imagined there was anything beyond the moon. It was only 9 years later when Luke Skywalker got in the X-Wing fighter that the galaxy was opened up. But once space was conquered, once man returned safely from the moon, every space toy was essentially dead. Space became a dirty word in the toy corporations. So the Outer Spaceman second series never made it. Now, there were 6 sets of 6 that came into the US as test samples from Hong Kong. And I know exactly where all of them are. 2 of them are right here in this house. But we're talking about individual sealed toys that are well over $100,000 a piece. Here's an opportunity to be able to afford Outer Spaceman toys, because even the first series, Gem Mint sealed Colossus Rex, will trade for $5,000. Here's the first opportunity for somebody to own OSM at an affordable rate, put them in their wallets or on their mobile devices, walk around and show them off, but actually have ownership.
Now, Gary, with the relaunch of the brand itself and, excuse me, and having the original line and then the second set of 6 that were never launched, will there be use of the original molds as kind of like a classic version of the toys and sell that line as well?
The original steel molds no longer exist. They were melted down and destroyed years ago. I have the Celastic molds, which is the very thick, heavy rubber in which you could theoretically mold another OSM. But with today's technology, what I was very happy about was that of all the scanning going on for the animations for the OSM, with all the scanning, they've actually built me by de facto computer files that can go right into a 3D printer. So now I'm making 12-inch outer spacemen where the originals were 6-inch, the remakes are 4 3/4 inch. Now I'm making 12-inch Safubi or Japanese vinyl, soft vinyl. I'm making 12-inch outer spacemen, and I'm on the third guy right now. And these things sell out like mad.
And David, your collection as a comic book artist, and then now as a toy collector and everything else, you have your set of Spider-Man since you're just as old as Spider-Man. Star Trek celebrating their 55th anniversary this year with their convention going on this weekend in Las Vegas, and you got the Enterprise behind you. What was it like for you to get a physical version of these Spaceman toys in your hand?
Well, I haven't. Gary and I, believe it or not, because I'm in Canada and Gary's in the US, I haven't seen Gary to really. I want to get them from Gary. I don't want to get them by mail.
And I've got an experience for David when he comes to the US, when he comes to New York City. I've got an experience. I'll give him the 60-cent tour and the $5.5 million collection of the vintage toys.
I'm into experiences. Just depends on what they are. But and I will say that I've never been. I'd love to have been a comic book artist, but I never was. But at the end of the day, yeah, you know, I've been fortunate. I mean, if you. I'm first and foremost a comic book collector. I'm a big Star Trek and then I think Star Wars fan, and I've had the unique opportunity of helping Lucasfilms launch BB-8 when one of our projects. But so you know, I'm so excited to be able to do this, and we've been very fortunate that we brought on one of the best in the industry to support the program, a company called Wax. And Wax is supporting our efforts, and they've done some amazing projects. And so, you know, the sales begin August 19th, and we're excited to allow people to come in and purchase, again, both a physical and a digital product that's never existed before.
And now, how did Fabian, who co-created Deadpool, and for some reason doesn't get the credit that he deserves in that creation, or at least the public recognition? Like, I talked to Rob Liefeld, you know, quite often. He doesn't live that far from me here in Orange County, California. Super nice guy. But sometimes when we talk to Rob, we also forget to mention Fabian was the co-creator of Deadpool. How did he become a part of this venture?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that the introduction to Gary was through actually Fabian's brother, Mariano. And Mariano and I worked together. He's our creative director over at our entire company at Liquid Avatar Technologies, and he works with Gary as well. And you know, we really needed, in fairness to Gary and to Mel, we really needed the opportunity to solidify the stories that they've been telling over the years. In the back of the packaging has been recounting. We needed a storyline, and so we really wanted the best in the business. And when it comes to comic book writing and, you know, sort of that creative, off the wall, you know, but amazingly detailed humor and creativity, there's really probably no one better in the business at this point in time than Fabian. And Fabian agreed to do this with Gary, and we're very, very happy. And there are some other surprises coming that will hopefully mean more interviews and more shows. But we're really, really super happy to have Fabian on board for the storyline.
Which means omnibus.
Yes.
Perfect. No, Fabian's a phenomenal writer. I have never gotten a chance to talk to him, at least not yet. But soon we'll be talking to him about this project, which I'm excited for. You know,
and I just finished, I might interrupt to give Fabian a really shameless plug. I've just finished reading his new novel, his first novel, Suburban Dicks, and I'd recommend it to anyone who wants to read something really kind of, you know, light but very interesting and fun to read.
You know, well, I'm looking forward to reading the novel as well, and there's so many more things. But luckily, you know, I make time for pleasure reading instead of just work reading, and so I'm glad to hear that. you know, as kids, a lot of us didn't necessarily pay attention to the story on the back of the toy box. You know, we saw the art and we thought the art was cool. Sometimes we wish the toy would match what the art looked like, because they almost never did, at least in the 80s. Like, we saw what the He-Man art looked like, and then we saw what the He-Man cartoon looked like, and we were confused as to why they didn't match. But how significant is the back of the packaging in this regard, with opening the story for the kids and the world at large for the world building?
What's instrumental is that Mel created the copy on the back of each Outer Spaceman blister pack. And it's a 3 to 5 sentence paragraph of who they are, where they come from, why they were chosen the best of the best that their planet has to offer, and where they're going. But it is so open-ended that anybody can just pick up where Mel left off. It's a brilliant exercise in copy, as far as I'm concerned, because the back of each package has such an encompassing structure to it that anybody can take the basic ABCs, the basic ingredients of what this paragraph has, and run with the ball. And right now, Fabian has taken all in from all now 21 Outer Spacemen, because I didn't just stop at the first series of 7 and the second series of 6. I went beyond the 13 Outer Spacemen, and I've added Earth astronauts and more aliens to now I have a 21 character lineup in the original Outer Spaceman universe. And each one of them still has a paragraph on the back that Mel is responsible for having written. And right now, Fabian is running with the ball with all the information in these short little paragraphs to create an extraordinary storyline that will in fact become the comic book.
I'm going to jump ahead into things and go beyond the 5 sentences on the packages, the original 7 plus 13 that never went into print, now the 21 characters, the NFTs and everything else. Disney had their chance with John Carter, and you know, in adapting John Carter of Mars, which was not a bad film, but was completely mismarketed. Your guys' love for Outer Spacemen shows through your passion, your dedication, and everything that goes along with it. When it comes time to do an animated series or do a full-length feature, well, even there's too many characters for a feature, I would say. So let's say a television series. How do we avoid the pitfalls of what happened with Rocketeer and John Carter, and build upon what's going from your foundation with the toys and then what Fabian's doing into a series?
Just so you know, Disney passed on the Outer Spacemen. They've actually seen 2 different separate pitches throughout the 25 years that I've been doing this. So Disney said no, and I was very happy, because they didn't do great with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They didn't do great with Rocketeer, certainly John Carter. These are failures, and we are extremely careful as to who gets their hands on this property, because this has to be done correctly, because this is an extraordinary property, and I protect it like I protect any one of my 3 daughters. And there is no way somebody is going to get their hands on it for either catch and kill, or to dilute it, or to destroy it. It's just not going to happen.
So would Amazon be a prime ideal, since they've done so well with The Boys?
Amazon is my #1, Apple is #2, Netflix is #3.
Well, Ted Lasso has been amazing on Apple TV Plus, and then The Boys have just, you know, like all I need, I feel like Spicoli and Ridgemont. All I need is some tasty ways and a cool buzz, and I'm there. All I need is 5 minutes with anybody from Amazon or Netflix. All I need is 5 minutes, and I'll get them hooked. I love it.
That's like the opening line to a joke, which I won't say.
Hey, well, let me tell you something. Never, ever before has there been 7 aliens chosen from their planets to be the best they have to offer, to come together to form a peacekeeping team to secure the galaxy from evildoers everywhere. And not for nothing, the last good guy alien, not Superman because he doesn't count, the last good guy alien was E.T. So we're due for 7 extraordinary figures that come together to help protect this planet and other planets like us. We're due. And the Outer Spacemen will be on the silver screen while I still have air in my lungs.
I'm hoping for it because this sounds like a huge, overtaking of your life. 25 years just for the project itself, and then
I'm a Wall Street guy, and I do big business on Wall Street. I build companies, I tear them down, and at the end of the day, I've worked more on OSM than anything in my entire life. I have ex-wives that will tell you my diligence to the OSM because I'm still married to them, but I ain't married to the ex-wives.
Plural. That's the scary part, Gary.
Well, I've had many wives. Some of them were even my own.
Woo. Someone's going to need to go to confession after this conversation. More than likely, it's going to be me after hearing all of Gary's torrid affairs.
There you go. There you go.
But David, since you're a part of this now, are you pitching ideas to Outer Spacemen in its expansion? I mean, there's 21 characters. I mentioned USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Could there be created a rivalry of a previous race that infected the waters of Earth that are now taking on Outer Spacemen?
Well, interesting because we have an underwater Outer Spaceman. But go ahead. I'm sorry, David.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say I think right now we're for those that have been fans of the Outer Spacemen, this is an amazing opportunity to expand where the Outer Spacemen have been and where it's going. For people who are new to the Outer Spacemen, again with Fabian on board and the creative ball in play, I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities. I've already spoken to some of my contacts in the industry, and there's a lot of interest in seeing what comes out next. I mean, right now we're starting with the NFTs, but there are plans, very, very short duration plans to move to a comic book by the end of the year. And, there graphic novels, there's lots of opportunities. And again, because we've got all the characters 3D rendered now and rigged for animation, there is lots of opportunity to do some pilot reels and just some very quick opportunities to put storylines together and do pitch decks. So I think there's lots of opportunity for the Outer Spacemen to really reach a wide and deep audience. And we haven't even talked about taking the product back to Asia, which I think it'll do amazingly well in Asia.
I wasn't familiar with this product till this was presented to me by Caroline about, hey, we really got to talk about this because this is going to be a lot of fun, and I am totally on board with it. For people like myself that weren't familiar with the Outer Spacemen and are just now seeing the toys and the ideas that you guys have with it, what is the connectivity for someone like me that wants to do research and become a part of essentially the extended family?
You just go to my website or go to Mel Burnkrant's website, and you'll fall down the rabbit hole. You will not want to leave, I promise.
Yeah. Now, have you guys spoken with Brian Volk-Weiss, who does the toys that made us?
I have spoken to him twice. He has no interest in the Outer Spacemen.
Okay. Because Brian's usually big on toys, so
he's
that's
very big on toys, and I even think that he has some original Outer Spacemen. However, he does not believe that the Outer Spacemen are part of the universe for the toys that made us, which I disagree. Because in the 1960s, there were very few space toys. There was Matt Mason, the Outer Spacemen, Zeroids, and Billy Blastoff. Those four, and you can throw G.I. Joe in the space capsule in, but G.I. Joe was a dress-up doll. It wasn't an action figure. But those 5 names that I just mentioned, those basically led the way in the 1960s for kids to have a mission in life, which was to use their imagination.
And with our recent new billionaire space race that we just saw in the last few weeks, how much interest has come back through the idea of going to space now that average people, average physicality, not astronauts that have trained for a decade, can go to the inner atmosphere? How much interest has been revived in space for that?
I want to comment on that because I was just going to say, what I think was the most prolific thing to get people reinterested in the space race has been the Mars rover. I think that's ignited an entire generation. And I think when we saw the last landing, I think people didn't realize off the bat that there were coded messages in the parachutes. So at the end of the day, we've got NASA themselves, promoting through social media and through imagery opportunities for people to get involved in this in the space race. I was at Comic-Con 50, I guess now going back a couple of years, and that was also basically the 50th anniversary of landing on the moon. And I mean, the interest, if sort of I'm not comparing the two, but there was this wonderful pop-up store with peanuts, and everything related to space sold out immediately. And I think if you were there, you know what I'm talking about.
I have the skateboard, and I have the plushy Snoopy. Yeah,
I don't have I just have the pins. But at the end of the day, we all are very romantically involved with anything to do with space. And I think this is a huge opportunity for those that have not been collectors to become familiar with what the future will be with space toys and the outer spacemen.
Love it. Gentlemen, where can we find the toys online for pre-order, for order, and then where can we find your companies online so we can connect with you and check out the NFTs and everything else?
The toys are at www.theouterspacemen.com.
And you can go to Oasis Digital Studios and pre-register. You go to wax.io and pre-register, and you can go to the Outer Spacemen and pre-register for the NFTs, which come out for sale next week. And there will be some really amazing surprises. So we encourage everyone to take a look and enjoy your experience.
I'm looking forward to it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great pleasure. I'm thrilled to now be introduced to the Spacemen because it's something I was never familiar with, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.